In 2020, an 18-year-old girl disappeared just days before her high school graduation. Her car was found in a church parking lot. The doors were open, the windows were down, her smartphone was on the seat, and the keys were in the ignition. The FBI, police, and several hundred volunteers searched the area for a full week, and the case quickly gained national media attention. When the case was finally solved, the public was in shock. Madison Bell lived in the small American town of Greenfield, Ohio, with her mother Melissa and her boyfriend Cody. The girl had just recently turned 18, and her graduation was scheduled to take place a few days after her disappearance. She was the captain of the cheerleading squad at her school and had many friends. After graduating, she planned to go to college to become a doctor. On the morning of May 17, 2020, she told her mother she was going to a tanning salon, just a few minutes' drive from her home. Maddie promised to be back soon, got in her car, and drove off. Several hours passed, but she never returned. Her mother started to worry. She knew Maddie sometimes stopped at McDonald's for coffee after the tanning salon. Besides, her daughter always called or texted when she was running late, but this time, there was no word from her. Her mother decided to call her, but there was no answer. Maddie also wasn't responding to calls or texts from her boyfriend. So, Melissa used the Find My iPhone app, which showed her the location of her daughter's smartphone. According to the map, it was somewhere between the local church and the tanning salon. She and Cody thought that Maddie might have been in an accident or that something else had happened. Without hesitating, they got in the car and went to look for her. They drove to the building with the tanning salon, but there was no sign of Maddie. Then, they pulled into the church parking lot and saw her car. As they got closer, her mother grew even more worried. Her daughter's smartphone was on the driver's seat. The windows were open, the doors were unlocked, and the keys were sticking out of the ignition. It all looked very strange. What could have made a girl abandon her car and smartphone in a parking lot, leaving the doors wide open? Her mother hoped that Maddie had just stepped away for a moment, but she was nowhere to be found in the church or the tanning salon. Even if she had only been gone for a few minutes, leaving her car and belongings like that would have been extremely reckless. Anyone could have stolen them, or the car itself. Melissa decided not to wait and called the police. They immediately began their search, and soon they had their first lead. An employee of the church where Maddie's car was found called the Highland County Sheriff's Office. He reported seeing a white car with California license plates in the parking lot that morning. Considering that it's over 2,000 miles from California to Ohio, the driver of this car caught the police's attention. Moreover, he was in the parking lot right around the time the girl disappeared, and there were no other cars there, as the church was closed due to the coronavirus. Soon, the police had another witness who also noticed the car and managed to get a look at the driver. It was a man in his early 30s with blonde hair. The witness couldn't see if anyone else was in the car with him. Meanwhile, the police reviewed surveillance cameras in the area and spotted the car and its driver. However, the footage wasn't clear enough to identify the man. The sheriff's office published the photos and stated that the person in the picture might have information about Madison Bell's disappearance. While the police tried to track down this mysterious man, hundreds of town residents joined the search. They combed the streets and surrounding areas, putting up flyers. At the same time, the FBI got involved. Drones were even used in the search for Maddie. Law enforcement also offered a $15,000 reward for any information that could help find the girl. Many of the volunteers were students from Madison's high school. The excitement for the upcoming graduation had turned into a state of near mourning. The information available about her disappearance was enough to lead to the most troubling conclusions. In just a few days, the case became a national story. It was all over the news. Maddie's relatives were being interviewed, and the governor of Ohio publicly expressed his hope that she would be found alive. The search was in full swing for almost a week until Friday, May 22nd, when the Highland County Sheriff made a surprising announcement. Madison Bell had been found alive and well. He stated that the girl had not been kidnapped. She had run away from home willingly and did not want her current location to be disclosed. Immediately after, her relatives made a public statement. They thanked the police, the FBI, and the hundreds of volunteers for their active participation in the search, and asked the media to respect their privacy during such a difficult time. No one expected this turn of events, and many people had legitimate questions. The lack of specific details from the police and the family was even more confusing. About 300 people had spent a week searching through forests, ditches, and streets. The story was heavily covered in the national news, and everyone wanted to know what had really happened. A few days later, the sheriff shared some more details. Madison was found in the company of the same man who had been caught on camera near the church. They were tracked down in Texas, thanks to his license plates. Since the girl was 18 and had left with him voluntarily, the police had to close the investigation. The residents of Greenfield were, to put it mildly, shocked by this turn of events, but they had no idea this was far from the end of the story. After a few weeks of silence, Madison suddenly went live on her Instagram and followed up with several more broadcasts. There, she answered many questions related to the story. First, she finally revealed the identity of the man caught on camera on the day of her disappearance. It was 29-year-old Zach Salmon from Texas. He and Maddie had met in an online game when she was only 15. According to her, a friendship quickly developed between them. They talked a lot and spent time gaming together. The girl had to constantly delete their conversations so her parents or boyfriend wouldn't see them. However, she insisted that there were no romantic conversations between them before she turned 18. A few years later, when she turned 18, she shared some very disturbing facts about her family with Zach. She stated that her boyfriend, Cody, had moved in with them when he was 14 and she was 13. Maddie said she never wanted a relationship with him, but her parents had allegedly insisted that she date him. Where this Cody came from, where his parents were, and what any of it meant, she didn't specify, and this information is not publicly available. This story sounds frankly wild and strange. It all casts her parents in a very poor light. Madison added that she had repeatedly warned her mother that as soon as she turned 18, she would break up with Cody. She also claimed that her mother often punished her physically. She even sent Zach photos of bruises. All of this led the girl to seriously consider running away from home as soon as she turned 18. Zach supported her and promised to help her get out of the situation. They began to create a plan, choosing a time and place to meet. The church parking lot was not a random choice. A large part of it was out of sight of street cameras, so the couple didn't have to worry about being identified quickly. On May 17th, Zach drove to that same parking lot. A few minutes later, Madison arrived. They talked for about 5 minutes, preparing for their escape. The girl left her phone and keys in the car, taking only her documents. After that, they got into Zach's car and drove to his home in Texas. Maddie claims she didn't know about the massive search until the police knocked on her and Zach's door. Frankly, that's hard to believe. The case was actively covered in the national news, and it's very difficult to imagine how the girl could have been completely unaware. However, that's not even the strangest part. But first things first. In her broadcasts, Maddie said she hadn't even called her mother and had no plans to do so. She only said that she loved Zach and was happy with him. Among all her stories, there was another point that baffled the public. When her mother reported her daughter missing to the police, she claimed that Maddie would never run away from home and hadn't left a note. But the girl herself said the opposite. According to her, there was a note. It's hard to take anyone's word for it in this whole story. But here's what's strange. While investigating, detectives concluded that the mother had called the police just 15 minutes after her daughter left the house. First, this contradicted her earlier statements. Second, in such a short period, Maddie clearly wouldn't have had time to go to the tanning salon. The only logical explanation is on the surface. The mother did find the note, but deliberately lied to the police. They would never have searched for an adult who left a note stating they were leaving voluntarily. Instead, the mother got the entire town, including several hundred volunteers, involved. If you think the story ends there, we have another unexpected twist for you. On June 20, 2020, Zach posted on his Facebook with new details about their story. The first part was about how they met in the game and how they came up with the idea for Maddie's escape. The guy described how he brought her to his home in Texas, where he lived with his mother. He then recounted how the police knocked on their door, spoke with Madison, and left. A few weeks later, the couple found out that many people on the internet supported them and were even willing to help them with money. At the time of her escape, Maddie had only $50 in her pocket, and Zach, at 29, was unemployed. The girl created new social media accounts and started accepting donations from these people. However, she didn't have her own bank account, so the money went to Zach's account. According to him, they managed to raise over $3,000. The money went toward clothes, food, and other expenses. At some point, Maddie decided to contact her mother, and they spoke on the phone. The conversation was short. The girl hung up because she felt her mother's crying was too fake. A few days later, she called again. Around the same time, Zach's mother kicked them out of the house. Apparently, she was tired of supporting her son and his girlfriend. After talking to her parents, Maddie found out they were currently on vacation in Florida. She decided to meet them, and she and Zach bought plane tickets. All of this caused the girl a great deal of stress. According to Zach's account, upon arrival, the couple checked into a motel, and soon, Madison went to meet her relatives, alone. On the way home, she had a panic attack and was taken to the hospital. That same night, she called Zach and asked him to pick her up, which he did. The next day, they walked on the beach. The guy felt that things were starting to get better and that Maddie was feeling much better. But the girl decided to meet with her mother again, even though the last time had ended in a panic attack for her. When her parents drove up to their motel, Zach noticed that Cody was driving. He was very surprised by this, as Madison had repeatedly told him she didn't want to see her ex-boyfriend. Zach then suspected that a new spark might have ignited between them, and he was right. A few days later, right before Zach's birthday, Maddie broke up with him. He didn't reveal any details, only adding that he flew home to Texas, and that's where their story ended. Currently, it's not known for sure what Madison is doing or if she is living with her parents and Cody, but this case still raises many questions. It's worth looking more closely at the reasons why she ran away from home. The girl said her mother often punished her physically and also forced her to date a boy who had been living with her since she was 13. It's all very confusing and strange, but one thing is for sure: Maddie grew up in an extremely unhealthy environment. It's possible that the girl could have been placed in the care of social services if law enforcement had decided to investigate the situation. But that didn't happen. And so this whole story unfolded. The police, the FBI, and about 300 volunteers spent almost a week of their time and effort searching for Maddie while she was hiding in Texas. This raises the main question: can she be blamed for this? If what she says about her mother and her relationship with Cody is true, she certainly had reasons to run away. On the other hand, at 18, she could have avoided this whole spectacle and at least called the police herself. But what happened after her escape looks like something out of a soap opera. It's unlikely that Madison will now be able to live peacefully in a town that she unnecessarily put through so much stress. What do you think about this whole situation? Is Madison to blame? Or should the police take a serious look at her parents? Be sure to share your opinion in the comments, the link to which can be found in the description. Thanks for watching.